Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. Today we're going to be talking about flankers. Flankers are definitely a subject of discussion where many people believe a lot of flankers are simply just cash grabs from the companies that release them. To be fair, I think there is something to be said about that, but I don't want to focus on that today. I actually want to focus on the positives. Flankers can sometimes be gross improvements over the originals or just simply a different take that some person might like if they didn't like the original. So I don't think flankers are inherently bad. They're just kind of a part of the fragrance game, and they can be positive or negative, but we're going to focus on the positive for today. So I've got 8 fragrances here that I consider to be some of the best flanker releases that I have in my fragrance cabinet. Just in case you're new to fragrances, if you don't know what a flanker is basically a release from the same company that is a different take or a variation off of a previous release. Usually it's a concentration flanker. They released an eau de toilette and they made it eau de parfum and so forth, or they may just give it a slightly different name or a tag on the end of the name. That's basically what a flanker is. And once again, like I said, I've got 8 of some of my favorites in my collection. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please hit that bell icon, enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. Starting off, we're gonna go with one from the house of Chanel. This is gonna be Bleu de Chanel Parfum. Chanel, Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So this is what I would call a concentration flanker. I call a concentration flanker a fragrance that is really based off of the original DNA and only made minimal changes overall to how the fragrance smells or maybe how you experience it. In the case of Bleu de Chanel, you had the fresh citrus and aromatic and woods combination that made Bleu de Chanel a massive hit. With this one in particular, they turned the woods up and kind of turned the citruses down. Still has that fresh kind of aromatic feel to it, but you're overwhelmingly getting a lot more woods in this, primarily cedar wood and sandalwood, to name a couple. And I personally like this one over the other one, so this is the only Bleu de Chanel I have. It's the only one I feel I need. We'll see if there's another flanker that comes out. Many people are asking for an elixir. Frankly, I'm hoping they don't do that, but if they do, it just better be amazing. But yeah, this is a concentration flanker, very well done. It's the best version for me personally. With concentration flankers, I kind of find it to be best for people to kind of decide which one works the best for them. It's usually, in my opinion, mostly redundant to have all 3 of the concentration flankers unless you're just, trying to collect them all, so to speak. You're doing it with the Pokemon route. So once again, from the house of Chanel, this is Bleu de Chanel Parfum. All right, so let's move on. We're gonna move on to the house of Dior, and this is gonna be Fahrenheit Parfum. Dior Fahrenheit Parfum. Now, by the name, this would suggest that this is a concentration flanker. It's not to me. For me, concentration flankers are usually released within a few years of each other. This came a few decades after the original Fahrenheit. If you're familiar with the original Fahrenheit, very heavy on the violet, has a very petrol-like vibe, a lot of leather in it. There's a ton of spices. There's a lot of florals, very complex scent. This has really kept that violet feel and a little bit of the leather feel and the spices, but this one added booze. It added a lot more sweeter notes. There's a great amount of vanilla in this. It took the original DNA and really is a different reimagining on it, while also increasing the concentration. So but really just kind of changing where you might wear this fragrance. This is more of a night out version, definitely modernized. I can't remember what the release year was for this, but it came out way after the original Fahrenheit. So not quite a concentration flanker. This is just a different take on a core DNA. Many would say this is better. It's easier to wear for most people. That leathery, ultra masculine petrol vibe that the original Fahrenheit has is a little bit much for some people. I like flankers like this that are done well. They stick to the original, but they just give a different feel for really the audience who might not like the original. I like flankers that do that, especially if they're done well. This is certainly the case with Dior Fahrenheit Parfum. So once again, Dior Fahrenheit Parfum. Next up, we got one from the house of Amouage. It's going to be Interlude Black Iris. Amouage Interlude Black Iris. So for me, this is going to be the exact type of flanker that Dior Fahrenheit Parfum is. It came much later, so it's not really a concentration flanker. In fact, as far as I know, This is the exact same concentration as the original Interlude, but what this one does, it gives a different take on the original Interlude DNA. Original Interlude, very, very smoky, very, very leathery, lots of incense, heavy on the woods. It's got this oregano accord in it that, you know, throws a lot of people off. So it can be a bit much for some people, and, you know, some people just don't want to jive with that scent DNA. But to me, this was made for those who wanted to like it, but there were just certain facets about it they didn't like. This is basically a fresher take on that Interlude DNA, but it's not degraded in any way. The quality of the ingredients is not downsized. The performance is basically exactly the same. Both of these are fragrances that last all day long as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's freshened up. You got more floral notes in here, iris being kind of one of the main ones to give it that fresher element. It still has the smokiness, but it's turned way down. Still has the leathery aspects, but it's turned way down. Still has the woods, but they're turned down. They're not as in your face, and that oregano note was gotten rid of in this one. I like the oregano note, but you know, I would say it probably doesn't work with the heavier, fresher florals that this one has. This is a great representation of a flanker that I think was just made for an audience that just couldn't get down with the original. So once again, from the House of Amouage, it's Interlude Black Iris. Next up, coming from the House of Hermes, we've got Terre de Hermes Parfum. Hermes, Terre de Hermes Parfum. Concentration flanker, obviously. This one to me kind of serves both purposes that I've discussed. It's a concentration flanker, but also gives something to people who maybe just couldn't get down with the original. Now, if you are familiar with Terre de Hermes and you don't like the kind of dirty orange smell it has, you might be okay with this one because the citrus is turned down in this one. But if you couldn't really get down with like the earthiness of it, you're not really gonna find, I think, much of an improvement in this if that's what kind of threw you with this one. This one has that earthiness just like Terre de Hermes, but it turns the citrus down. It's not as sharp. It's basically smooth around the edges, so to speak. It's a more rounded, smoother version of that Terre de Hermes DNA. Whether or not it's better, I think it's kind of irrelevant. I think it just gives you a different wearing experience while still giving you what was so great about Terre de Hermes, in my opinion. So this one could appeal to someone who thought certain aspects of Terre de Hermes were just too much for them. Now, this one's certainly not as popular as the original Terre de Hermes, but I do think it is an excellent flanker. And matter of fact, many of the Terre de Hermes flankers, if not all of them, in my opinion, are very excellent in their own way. So once again, from the House of Hermes, it's Terre de Hermes Parfum. All right, next one's coming from the House of Cartier, and we have got Pasha de Cartier Parfum. Cartier, Pasha de Cartier Parfum. To me, this one is more similar to Dior Fahrenheit in that it is just simply a reimagining on the original, because this one also came out many decades, or a couple of decades, later than its original predecessor. Definitely a different take overall. Very balsamic fragrance, has kind of the dry woodiness at its base, has a little bit of a booziness to it compared to the overwhelmingly barbershop style of the original Pasha de Cartier, which I need to pick up. I don't have a bottle of it. I need to get that. But anyway, this one is definitely just a reimagining overall. It doesn't really overall smell like the original. It's smoothed out, more of a night out version, modernized, if you will. Less rough around the edges, but you know what? At the base of the fragrance, you still kind of get that Pasha de Cartier barbershop vibe. It's just kind of hiding at the base notes, if you will. So it's still definitely a flanker, still paying ode to the original, but it's definitely a reimagining, and it's a very well done one, in my opinion. So once again, from the House of Cartier, this is Pasha de Cartier Parfum. Next one's coming from the House of BDK Parfums. This is going to be Gris Charnel Extrait. BDK Parfums Gris Charnel Extrait. Now, in my opinion, I'm just kind of looking at what I have here. This might be one of the few flankers that are in existence that have completely overshadowed, in my opinion, its predecessor. Gris Charnel, I think it was an eau de parfum, is a very popular scent, but this has been on the market for a few years now. I think it has completely taken over the popularity aspect of Gris Charnel. Gris Charnel being a kind of fig-centered, fizzy, creamy, but also airy fragrance at the same time. Kind of has this light airiness to it with a woodsy base. This still has that, but it's much more intensified, higher amounts of vanilla, in my opinion. The woods are turned up, the spices maybe even turned up a little bit. Still has that airiness, but it's just pulled back a bit. A little bit of a boozy aspect to this fragrance as well. I think now that more people have had a chance to kind of get their nose on this one has just overtaken the original Gris Charnel, and it's far better in my personal opinion as well. Love the way this smells. Once again, from the house of BDK Parfums, this is Gris Charnel Extrait. Next one is coming from the house of Prada. We have got Prada Luna Rossa Black. Prada Luna Rossa Black. Now the Luna Rossa line is a little bit of an enigma in terms of the fragrances I featured here today, but there are other lines like it. This is a line where many of the flankers really smell nothing like the original. It's almost like they're reaching for an identity with the fragrance, which you could say that they've kind of found it with Ocean. This one is still the best Luna Rossa in my opinion. I honestly don't even remember what the original Luna Rossa smells like, so I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to talk about this one on its own, but it is a flanker. It was released as a part of a line with a predecessor and many others after it. But this one doesn't smell anything like the ones that came before it or after. This one is quite powdery, it's a little bit spicy, kind of has an earthy floralness to it. It's quite ambery as well. Some say it kind of smells like burnt rubber. When I heard that, I could understand it, but it does, or burnt hair. Was it burnt hair? Yeah, maybe it's burnt hair. I can understand why they said that, but it doesn't bother me. I don't think I'm smelling burnt hair. I know what burnt hair smells like, and this doesn't smell like that to me. But this is an excellent fragrance from that line. Very popular in the community, but not overall popular in sales. So, you know, there's always been rumblings of this one being discontinued, but it's still here. So once again, from the house of Prada, this is Luna Rossa Black. All right, last but not least, coming from the house of Arabian Oud, we have got Majestic Woody Intense. Arabian Oud, Majestic Woody Intense. So as the name implies, this is obviously a more intense, woodier version than the original Majestic would suggest. I do have the original Majestic, and that is very accurate. This is, I don't know the release year from this. From the information I have, there's no release year given, but the original Majestic is in 2011, so I don't know what the spread is in terms of that, but that Majestic line has a number of flankers. This is not the only one. And I think all of them are pretty much more popular than the original. Kind of focuses on a note of Divana, best I can tell. The original Majestic is a little bit floral and fresh and, you know, a little bit more bright than this is. You can almost say this is like a seasonal flanker. This is definitely more of a cool weather representation of that fragrance. Woods intensified, the sweetness aspect intensified, much more alluring than the original Majestic. So it's a kind of a cross between a concentration flanker as well as just giving you a different take on the original. You can smell the original in this, but this one I think is the most popular, and you can see why. It's just that increase, that intensity with the woods and just kind of the beefier take on the fragrance DNA. Those tend to be more popular, and so this one is a good flanker, and really a lot of those Majestic flankers are really good if you want to check them out, but I don't know if you can get samples of them. Once again, from the house of Arabian Oud, this is Majestic Woody Intense. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below what some of your favorite flankers are, and just if you want to share, give me your just kind of general thoughts on flankers. Do you think they're a good thing or do you think they're a bad thing? I've already given my thoughts at the beginning of the video. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. So thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. And I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.